Welcome back, my friends. We're here on a Monday. It's a Labor Day Monday, but who cares? There's baseball. There's money to be made. Let everybody else go on Twitter, Facebook, or Tumblr if they're still on there posting away on their MySpace page about, I've got to work today. We're out here working for you because you're part of the Odd Shopper community. We are all here looking to do the same thing, cash some tickets. And in this case, it's 2 tickets, an MLB parlay. We're going to build the baseline parlay. And then once we build the 3-leg MLB parlay, here on this video, we supersize the shit out of it just for you to give you this big, gigantic, massive payday. So we'll head on over to the DraftKings. You, in the meantime, need to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss anything when these videos drop. All right, let's bang a baseline out real quick. Now, I mean, come on. It's an early start. I don't care where this game could be played in Pittsburgh. It could be played in Jerusalem. It could be played on the moon for all I care. All right, minus 210. Mets win the game. I mean, that's as simple as it gets, right? This was about as disappointing as we've seen the Mets play against the Nationals, lifeless with Carlos Carrasco on the hill and Fetty Wap getting the win here. Not a good sign by any means for the Mets. Now, look, it's not a bad situation overall for the Mets, but you have to think about, losing 2 straight at home to Washington to lose that series. You go on the road and you would think, all right, well, at least it's not a division team. That's really what we're looking at here. At least it's just not a division squad. I think the Mets right now are the number 1 play that we start with, at least on this slip. All right, we move to our second game, and here I think there's a really good opportunity to target 2 things. One, and we talked about this on the the likes, leans, and locks video for Sunday about not trusting. We went over in the Houston Angels game, but we couldn't trust we wanted to, but we couldn't trust the Angels in that regard. So we just took the Astros on the run line and paid out. In this case, look, Detroit is awful on the road. They just don't have anything, no juice early in games. They just don't have the ability to really score. They're bad in the first. They're bad in the first 3. They're bad in the first 5. On the road, it's just a different story overall for this team. Not to say they're great at home, but the splits are much wider, and it can be a little favorable to get Detroit with some value. Not here. Angels, again, Mike Trout homers, Shohei Ohtani homers. It's one or the other, and that's it. I mean, that's really all we can rely on at this point with this game and really with that team. So I want to sneak in again, and it's not the Houston Astros coming to town. It's the hapless, lifeless Detroit Tigers, and we want to take advantage of that by going under 8.5 here. And again, this is about fading the Angels' ability to take advantage of anybody. It wasn't like it was Justin Verlander on the hill. And on top of that, Detroit's inability to do anything.
And we are live. Welcome to a pseudo MLB strategy / live before lock show on this lovely Labor Day. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks, and we have just a 5-game MLB slate today. It was supposed to be 6 just earlier today. We lost the Mets game, rain out, I assume. I haven't paid attention to any reason as to why it happened, but it's usually rain. So I'm going to assume that it's rain. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how was your weekend?
It was good. Went back to my mom's, helped out with some stuff around the house. Hadn't seen her in a couple months, so it was nice to get back there, see her, see the dogs. Sports DFS wise, it was okay. Got my ass kicked in MMA on Saturday. Almost had a good baseball day yesterday. Came up just short, so ready for today.
All righty. Yeah, nothing fun for MMA either. But we got a pay-per-view next week, so that'll be fun. DS Chimaev. Well, you know, they make phones.
Yeah.
Are you going to play it? Can you play it? Like, are you going to try to play it?
I haven't decided. I kind of thought about it, but like it's my sister's wedding, so I'm kind of busy during the day too.
It's a shame. It's a shame. All right. Well,
I don't know who schedules
a
wedding the day before week 1 of the NFL and during the Chimaev Diaz fight, but my sister.
Shout out to your sister. Yeah, we got football coming up Thursday. It's going to be a good week. I'm mildly excited for football to be back. Much more for showdown slates than I am for like Sunday mornings, but
I'm much more excited for Sundays.
You're crazy, but I know why you are. So that's totally different.
Not at all excited for NBA to come back.
Like, really?
Not at all.
Why not?
It's twice as much work.
That's fair. That's fair. No,
like
I'm grabbing ownership projections from the main slate, and I was wondering why none of the names were matching. Go ahead.
Yeah, my typical day now is like doing my content in the morning or in the afternoon, and then either like going to the pool or sitting on my balcony or sleeping or whatever for like 2 to 3 hours. Now it's just going to be doing NBA projections the entire time for 6 months. I'm not excited.
Just in case you're listening, Chris or Nolan, Adam is telling you guys that he needs more work. That's what I heard, right? You can take on some additional projects right now.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I said. I'm very open to that.
It's the way that I heard it. Well, I mean, chat, let me know here. Would you guys like to see Adam do more content? I think this is going to go my way.
Keep in mind that asking Adam to do more content can very quickly lead to Adam doing no content.
That's fair. That's fair. Depends how DFS is going, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, 5 games. The opener was supposed to be the Mets. That was a 12:30 something start. That is gone now. So we are down to a 5-game slate. You ready to break this one down?
Yep.
All righty. We're going to kick it off. Let's see. How many people we got in here right now? 221, 37 likes. That's not going to be enough. First, we're going to do 2 things. First, we're going to hit the like button again because it's Labor Day. And this seems like our labor on Labor Day should be rewarded with thumbs ups. And then another big super chat from George. Thanks to Greg and Josh's tips on the Saturday show and Discord. Got first place in the MMA Throwdown, tied with 12. Thanks again. This dude's just banking everything, so we might as well just hire him at this point.
Oh, yeah, I saw him up there. I didn't realize that he ended up taking it down. But yeah, I saw him up there.
Incredible. Good to know. I assume it was because I did the MMA strategy show, so you're welcome. That's my guess. I just told everybody to play really shitty fighters.
Yeah, which did not work out. That was my strategy.
Not this week. Not this week. Sure didn't. All righty, here we go. Yankees and Twins. Jameson Taillon going for New York. Chris Archer going for Minnesota. Taillon, mildly popular here. Obviously 5-game slate. 7,800 here against the Twins. 40% owned, the 3rd highest owned pitcher on the slate. How does that feel to you? Because this feels like a spot where you can kind of be... Look, to me, there's like 1.5 good pitchers today, and Taillon isn't part of that 1.5.
You don't think Taillon's worth half of a good pitcher?
Is he? I mean, I got him projected for under 14 fantasy points. I can only be so excited at that point.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like you said, the pitching just kind of sucks. I think Taillon's a good enough real life pitcher. I think.
Well, like I don't. That's not the way that I determine good. He's like average.
Okay, yeah, sure. I was thinking it. Yeah, so I guess my bar for where we were going with that is just lower. I was thinking like not a pitcher that is awful.
That's fair.
Yeah, so I assume your half was Flaherty.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean
And
the
obviously Kevin
40% coming
Gausman
into
is
Tyon, it seems like a lot, but at the same time, we do have him with a 30% chance, 33% chance of being a top 2 pitcher.
Yeah.
And it's not like the alternatives are great. Walker's $1,500 more expensive. Flaherty's getting more ownership. Patino is getting less, but he has plenty of question marks as well. There's not really anything I can point to where I'm like, oh, like this is a really good alternative to 38% owned Tyon.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't know. I don't see it as a great strikeout matchup. I guess there's just not a lot of choices. Like I had him 24% to be a top pitcher, 17 top value. Like that's just going to be good. Is there any appeal to Archer on the opposite side? Because he is getting 7% ownership in a matchup that's decent enough for strikeouts on a 5-gamer, but is also the Yankees, not your typical Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the case for Archer would simply be that it's a 5-game slate. He's not getting much ownership. He is really cheap at 6,100. And when you look at those other cheap pitchers, your alternatives are Feltner, Sanchez against the Cardinals, Hauser and Coors, Bauman against Toronto. I guess Archer probably looks the best out of that group if you do need to pay down.
Okay. I'm refreshing my crunch
and
right
to
now.
your point, this is also a not good Yankees lineup.
No, it is not a good Yankees. It's an actively bad Yankees lineup as far as Yankees lineups go.
Yeah, I mean, if it were another team, it would just kind of be like, oh, this is mediocre. But, Torres, Judge, Stanton, Donaldson, Trevino's been fine. And then you get just the worst hitters they can throw in there.
Is my ownership not pulling through correctly? What in the world is this sorted by?
I don't know. You seem like the only person that can answer that question.
It's true. I probably am. Okay, I have my exposures now. I ran my crunch. I have the same amount of Jameson Tyon as I have Chris Archer. So that seems like a great start for the day.
Sounds like you're going to have an enjoyable afternoon.
Well,
I don't think that's... I don't think that's
worse
crazy. I mean, it's not... I think it might be a little extreme having the same amount, but I don't think that Chris Archer should be 1/5 the ownership of Jameson Tyon.
I'm going to need you to run a crunch because the exposures that I'm getting to some of these pitchers that we're going to talk about that we're not projecting for ownership is making me think that something's wrong.
All right, well, it'll be a minute because I'm still trying to even get anything.
We got plenty of time. Plenty of time. Let's talk, I guess, about the Yankees bats. They are significantly more owned than Twins, and there's sort of a line drawn in the sand here. The Yankees are 5th in aggregate ownership. The Twins are 6th. The Yankees are at 10%, 10.5. The Twins are at 5.5. So those ranks are a little bit different. Yankees are also 5th in our top stack odds. The Twins are 7th. So let's start with those Yankees. How do you feel about them as not chalk on a 10 games or on a 10 team slate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty appealing, just given that Chris Archer is not a great pitcher. And I mean, this is a watered down lineup, but you still have Judge, you still have Stanton, you still have Donaldson. So still plenty of power upside in it.
Is the top stack tool not updated, or am I crazy? Oh, there we go.
Did you go to early?
I did go to early, but it only had 5 teams in it, and then I refreshed it again, and everything was there. So couldn't really figure out what was going on. That'll allow me to get the top pitcher stool. Yeah, we've got Judge 22% owned. I assume he's very, very cash viable. 6,500. Can you? I think somebody mentioned it in chat a couple of minutes ago. Can you picture a hitter price higher than that?
I mean, I feel like Trout's been around there a lot in his career.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure back in the day when they cared about Coors Field, you got some prices up there.
I can't ever remember anything getting to 7.
Yeah, neither can I.
So it's certainly in and around that top area.
Yeah.
So I got to basically the field here on the Yanks. No big stands either direction. Just sort of, they've got a really, really weird lineup. Outfield, an outfield shortstop, another outfielder, another shortstop. This isn't exactly the easiest team to stack. They don't even have For the Yankees don't have anybody with first base eligibility in their lineup today.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
Unless you want to play 5 outfielders or 3 shortstops, that seems pretty difficult to do. But I like the Yanks. I don't really like the Twins, but I kind of wish that I did. I'm not getting to Tyon, but I'm also not getting to the Twins. This seems like it's going to be a great slate. They are 7th in our top stack odds, 6th in ownership. They're basically the exact same number. I was a little bit lighter on them coming out of my sims. What do you see here from Minnesota against Tyon?
So I'm trying to update projections, but we have like 15 pitchers pitching on the early slate apparently. Oh, nope, it's because I have the early slate and main slate check. That'll do it. So I actually like Minnesota here because you're getting them in Yankee Stadium with the short porch and right. Tyon's had issues with left-handed power this year. 193 expected ISO to lefties. Arise doesn't have a lot of power, but he's only 3,700 leading off. Kepler hasn't been great, but 3,200 in Yankee Stadium. Nick Gordon, I think, looks very good with second base outfield eligibility at 2,700. Cave has some power at 2K. Obviously not having Polanco in the lineup is disappointing, but I do like the fact that there are some left-handed bats here that have at least a little bit of upside. And then on top of that, Correa and Miranda are pretty much always solid options.
You anticipating getting to more Minnesota here or New York?
Probably Minnesota.
Interesting. Okay.
I'll have a better answer, I think, by the end of the show.
I should hope so.
Well, lock's not till 105 now. So.
I mean, is it actually moved?
I mean,
well, like I understand what you're saying, but like, my approach is different.
What'd you say?
My approach is still different. DraftKings moved it. All righty. So lock is officially 105. That makes life a lot easier. And now I don't have to care as much about doing things during the show.
How would it have changed your approach?
Well, I would like to get my lineups in before lock because it changes the way that I'm going to run crunches.
Why?
I guess it doesn't, does it?
No.
I was thinking about using late swap optimizer there, but it didn't apply at all in my brain.
Nope.
Look, yesterday was a long day. I had a fun Labor Day. I smoked a pork butt. I had some cocktails. Might have done some other things. And, I didn't go to bed till 1 o'clock because I watched wrestling last night.
Like me going to bed at 6 a.m.
Yeah, I was up. I watched a wrestling pay-per-view last night until like 12:30. I'm dragging ass a little bit here, so it's fine. We're going to be all right. Have you run any sort of dummy cash crunch yet?
I have not.
Okay. I'm going to do that right now so we could talk through this. I think it's probably just Judge and then probably just Judge. Let's see. Not even really getting to Judge, interesting enough, but I guess that's what happens when there's a Coors game on the slate because I am inundated with Rockies and Brewers in particular. So I don't have anything to add with this one.
Yeah, I have it running right now using the Stokastic projections, and is that right? Oh, wait, I need to take out Jordan Lyles, I guess.
Wait, why?
Right. Well, because he's not pitching the first game.
Really?
It's Bauman, I think.
Oh, I had Lyles. I copied that incorrectly. Wasn't helping that I was then getting 21% Jordan Lyles because he was projected for no ownership. That was one of those talking points I needed to get to. All right, let's make that change to Bauman and I could rerun everything. Good deal. I have no idea how deep Mike Bauman's going in this game. Do you have an idea?
No, not at the moment. I'm trying to figure out who the other pitcher is I need to remove.
Wait, what are you removing them from?
Fantasy Cruncher.
Can you just click? Do they stay there if you just click the early slate?
Oh, wait, never mind. So normally when there's double headers, Fantasy Cruncher puts in 4 pitchers. This time they only put in 2, but they put in Lyles instead of Bauman.
Okay. That's probably why everything worked perfectly for me. Okay, so Bauman's not... Okay, he has been starting in AAA. Last 3 starts, 5 innings, 6 innings, all normal. Feels like this is a 5-inning start for him if he can.
Yeah, we only have him projected for 2.7 DraftKings points. That is not it.
That is not it at all. Give me 1 second. I can tell you what I have him at. That way we can at least use that as a jumping off point, get this slate correct. I have Mike Baumann. Oh my God. Do you know what arm he throws with?
Right.
righty. Got it. Good stuff here. Cruising through this slate so far, but we have plenty of time to do this and no real end point at this point. All right. I've got Baumann projected for fantasy points for sure. Now I just don't have him. How is his name spelled? Is there two N's?
Baumann.
B-A-U. Is he Michael Baumann in fantasy?
In Fantasy
It
Cruncher?
was a great show, guys.
He's Michael Baumann in Fantasy Cruncher.
Mike Baumann. Why is this not showing up for me? All right, I'll deal with that part later. You ready to go to game number 2?
Yeah.
Mike Baumann going for the Orioles. Toronto Blue Jays have Kevin Gausman on the hill. This will be the easiest thing that we could possibly talk about because Kevin Gausman is 9,700 and he is quite clearly the highest projected pitcher on today's slate. Is there any way to get away from him today other than the fact that you're an Orioles homer?
I mean, it would just be that it's a 5-game slate and he is more expensive than everybody else. But no, I think he's pretty clearly the top pitcher. You're certainly going there in cash. We have more than a 42% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only 47% ownership. So given the fact it's a 5-game slate and he's kind of just standing by himself, that's not a ton of ownership. 3.7 implied run total. Just a really good pitcher. Not a great spot, but decent. I mean, the Orioles running out a pretty good version of their lineup. I still don't know why they're using Jesus Aguilar against righties instead of Kyle Stowers. That kind of baffles me. But Mullins, Rutschman, Santander, Mountcastle, Urias, Henderson, 1 through 6, Aguilar's whatever, Hayes hitting 8. I mean, this lineup is pretty deep and not one that I would expect pitchers to just carve up if they don't have their best stuff. But Gausman's been a very good pitcher all season long and clearly is the best pitcher on this slate.
I have Mike Baumann projected for 10.9 fantasy points at 5,900, which I think is going to be pretty interesting. That's better than everybody else I have, and that's above him in any sort of pay down options. Let's talk about Baumann if you can. We have him projected for basically no ownership. Can you go there against this Toronto team? I
think the only case is just that it is a short slate, so sure, I guess, but he's not anybody that I really expect much out of here. At AAA this year, he does have a 31% strikeout percentage that is mixed in about half and half between the bullpen and starting. So far in his major league career, he's made 11 appearances all out of the bullpen. I didn't realize that.
When I pulled it up, I was like, "Oh, this guy's not starting."
I knew he'd been a starter throughout the minors. I just didn't realize he had never started for the Orioles, but. So this is his first major league start. In those 11 appearances, 22 innings pitched, hasn't had a lot of success, only a 13.6% strikeout percentage, 11.7% walk percentage. Zips projects him for a 17% strikeout percentage moving forward. The bat is at 22.5%. Always interesting when they like a minor leaguer more than Zips or Steamer. But like he has shown strikeout upside in the minors, but I don't expect him to have much success here against the Blue Jays.
Yeah, that's going to be tricky. Price point works, I guess, on a day like today. We'll see what the salaries look like on the Rockies and Brewers to see how much that matters. Gausman's just obviously going to be excellent everywhere. I'm going to end up with some Baumann. I know that I am, but the Blue Jays project so well. I got him at a 124 aggregate WRC plus. That might be the highest I've seen this season. There's not a hole in this lineup anywhere. There's so much power too. If this were an old Camden with last year's fences, this could be a pretty big number for the Blue Jays. That said, like that's a pretty low implied total for Toronto here. So there's definitely some respect going to Baumann on the opposite side.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's also the Orioles having a solid bullpen too. And that bullpen was also strengthened, although I don't know how much it matters. I mean, it still matters, but like with it being an almost entirely right-handed lineup. But they do have DL Hall in that bullpen, and obviously it's been a good bullpen all season long. Now they have one of their top pitching prospects out there, who's a starter, but they're just using him as a reliever for the rest of the season. Throws 100 miles an hour, has a great changeup. So it's just another guy they can bring in that's going to be really difficult to hit. So I don't even know that it's respect for Baumann as much as I think it's you're probably going to face him for 4 or 5 innings. Like maybe you face him for 5 innings, but if that's the case, he probably was pitching well. Yeah. And then you're just going to get guys that you don't want to be facing.
All righty. Let's talk bats then. we clearly have to start with Toronto, third in top stack, third in ownership. I mean, I don't know what else I could possibly say other than I'm very happy to get Toronto bats when I can. How does that ownership feel to you?
It seems pretty much correct. I mean, obviously, I just laid out the negatives for Toronto between you mentioning the 380-foot mini green monster in left field and the fact that the Orioles do have a good bullpen here. And Michael Baumann, I mean, he's a not highly regarded prospect, but there is like talent there. You know, you're not talking about some just random dude being called up. There is a decent chance that he just has a good start. So that combined with the bullpen, you know, obviously I don't think it's like a cakewalk for Toronto or anything, but 11.5% chance of being the top stack, 11.5% ownership share. I think that makes sense. Getting less ownership than the two teams in cores. They are more expensive. That's the one thing that kind of trips you up here is in terms of top value, we have Milwaukee at 25%. We have Colorado at 10%, Toronto at 3%. So, you know, you're kind of from a projection standpoint taking a step back, and from a value standpoint taking a step back. That can make it kind of difficult to get there, but that's also why the ownership is lower.
Yeah, I'm a little light on them right now. I'm curious to see what happens once we get Baumann corrected. I don't know if that's going to change Toronto at all, but we'll see. Only guy that I got to anywhere near what the field is getting for Toronto is Alejandro Kirk. Does not surprise me at all. And if I get to Toronto, I'm very happy about it. But I think I'm going to be able to find some better spots here. Do you like Baltimore on the opposite side? Any appeal to you against Gausman?
Not a ton, especially because, I mean, we have them with about a 4% chance of being the top stack. We have them with about 4% projected ownership. So I thought there was a chance that you would, you know, this would be a spot where maybe Baltimore was like 5-6% and you were just getting like 2% ownership. But looks like the ownership's more or less where it should be. The case for Baltimore, though, would just simply be they have good hitters here. I mean, 1 through 6, everybody's good. Aguilar this year has been slightly below average, but for his career, he's above average. And you only have to go back to last season for him to be above average. And then Austin Hayes, also a solid hitter. Mateo has even been hitting better recently, too. Like for most of the season, he's been a high strikeout guy, you know, occasionally runs into a home run, and he's a stolen base if he gets on. But like he's been hitting better as well. And I didn't know this till the other day. I didn't even know he'd been in the Yankees organization. But 2016, Jorge Mateo was the number 1 prospect in the Yankees organization ahead of Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez.
Whew. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. He then was traded.
Now he gets to hit 9th for the Orioles.
You're right. He was traded to the Padres. I don't remember what deal. The Padres sent him to Oakland. Or no, he was traded to Oakland as part of the Sonny Gray trade. And then Oakland sent him to the Padres. The Padres DFA'd him last year. The Orioles grabbed him off waivers. So that was just 1, really interesting to me, and 2, made me like him a little bit more as an Orioles fan, just because like obviously there's a lot of athleticism and stuff there. I didn't realize there was like legit underlying talent that just hadn't been tapped.
Traded by the New York Yankees with Dustin Fowler and James Caprillion to the Oakland A's for Sonny Gray and international bonus money. Then 3 years later, traded by the Oakland A's to the San Diego Padres for a player to be named later, which ended up being Junior Perez.
It also makes me happy that like the team that he was sent to and couldn't get anything out of him was the A's, because the A's just suck.
And him, Fowler, and Caprillion for Sonny Gray.
Clearly the best player in that trade
is Sonny Gray.
Mateo. Well, I mean, going to Oakland.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were advocating for James Caprillion there for a second. I was like, no. Yeah, I'm not really getting to all that much Baltimore. I can't really justify it. Gausman is good. He looks good today. I have more than the field is projecting the amount of Baltimore that I'm going to be able to get to. And honestly, 2 first basemen, 2 third basemen, like it's a shitty lineup to stack too.
Yeah. Somebody had just mentioned it in chat, and I was going to say the same thing. DraftKings, they are just like asleep. Except they're not, which is kind of the crazy thing. It would be one thing if they were just leaving Gunnar Henderson at the same position they had given him when he came up, which I believe was shortstop, and just not giving him MP. It would just be like, all right, this is annoying. They're just not paying attention. They're like chasing him around the infield. Like he came up as a shortstop, then they moved him to third base, then they moved him to second, then they moved him back to third, then they moved him to short, then they moved him to second. He's now back to third. He's playing second, he's playing third, he's playing short. He's simply just filling in for whoever they want to give a break basically because he can play all three positions at a high level. It's like when in NBA they don't give, like LeBron MPE. And like when he's like the one player that absolutely 100% should have it. Like this guy's just playing a different position every day and they just keep giving him one position and it's like on a 1 to 2 day lag. But it's really annoying when your 5 and 6 hitter are both third baseman. Your 4 and 7 hitter are both first baseman. The one plus to them from a roster construction standpoint is you do get Rutschman, who is always going to be one of the best catching options.
I finished my crunch with Bauman. I'm getting to Bauman. Based on the way that I'm getting him, I think he's going to get a small amount of ownership. Because I think that's what's driving me. We have him at 1.3%. I don't know how that's going to shake out, but I am racing to the bottom to get better bats, apparently. So there's that.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, he's not a total gas can and he is cheap.
I just want you to run I want to know your crunch. So you're like, yo, by the way, I got 44% Mike Bauman today.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be able to do that until we give him a correct projection.
Truth. I hear you. 57% Gossman for me. Only 3% Blue Jays. So we're going to have a lot to talk about when we get to cores, I believe. Anything else here, Orioles or Blue Jays?
Nope.
All righty, guys. Let's talk a little bit about schedule for the rest of the day. This is simple. MLB Deeper Dive coming up at 5 p.m. That will be Adam and Eric, I believe. And then I will be up again at 6 p.m. for Live Before Lock. But I think that's only till 6:40. That'll be myself and Neil. And then MLB player projections are free today. That's going to be what you want. And based on today's slate, where you get the nice Labor Day early, 5-game early. I don't remember how many are in the late slate. I think it's 6. That's 2 slates of free player projections. Take advantage while you can if you guys are home and off. So there we go.
I'm sending a message to try and get Bauman's projection fixed.
Good deal. I'm curious to see where it comes in too, because if I'm going to maintain 10.2, I'm going to be in trouble. Rays and Red Sox. 3.8 run implied total on both sides here. Luis Patino and Michael Wacha. Patino 16% owned at 8,400. Michael Wacha 29% owned at 9,300. I certainly prefer Wacha here. So let's start with him and his ownership. I think he's basically appropriately owned in this spot.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Projected for 29% ownership, 31% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Good park to pitch in, decent matchup. Tampa Bay obviously dealing with some injuries. Really, it's just on most slates, I would not have any interest in a $9,300 Wacha. On this slate, he's going to just find his way into some lineups.
Yeah, I got to 23%, so I'm just going to be chilling around the field with Wacha. Patino, on the other hand, I'm very curious about. 8,400. Steamer projects him quite poorly. We have him projected so much better than I do. I'm curious to see where you land or what you think of Patino here.
I think that from a talent standpoint, I'm interested just because he's 8,400. I don't like the matchup with the Red Sox, but I do like the park. You only have a 3.8 implied run total for Boston as well. I like the lack of ownership going to Patino just because I think that, to me, when you look at the pitching, it kind of just breaks down into like 2 distinct groups with Patino in the middle, where you have Gossman, Taillon, Wacha, Flaherty getting a lot of ownership. You have Archer, Feltner, Sanchez, Hauser, Bauman getting basically no ownership, and you have Patino in the middle. But Patino is just a hell of a lot more talented than anybody that isn't getting any ownership. Probably more talented than Wacha and Taillon as well in terms of just raw stuff and potential upside. So I am interested in the lack of ownership coming into him simply because I do think he's talented. I don't have a lot of confidence in him doing well, but we have him with a 21% chance of being a top 2 pitcher and only 16% ownership.
He's fully stretched out, right? Yeah. 31st, he threw 5 2/3, 23 batters. Just hasn't really been it hasn't been up much in the majors. 13 2/3 innings in the majors this season, 11% strikeout rate. Not ideal. Not like I'm projecting him for that, but 25% K rate in AAA. And what the hell is CPX?
Either the Arizona League or Florida Instructional League or whatever.
He threw First 2 starts of the year in the CPX. I don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah, it's their like extended spring training. Something. It's like where Jackson Holliday went immediately after being drafted.
Okay. I'm light on Patino. I'll probably get a little bit more. I think I have his innings too low for today, but at the same time, he does not project well via Steamer. 21% K rate, 4.7 FIP is. I'm not going to get a ton. I just know that I'm not. Let's talk bats then. These are the last and second worst teams in terms of aggregate ownership. 6th and 8th though in top stack. Go with whichever team you prefer right now. Who looks better, Rays or Red Sox?
Given ownership, I think Boston. Both teams are projected for 2 to 3% ownership, but we have Boston with a 7% chance to be in the top stack. Tampa Bay at 4.5. I think it's simply just that. So while Patino is talented, he is still unproven in the major leagues. He's a highly regarded prospect. Was a big part of the Blake Snell trade, but still has had his ups and downs. And we don't have the Boston lineup yet, but assuming you're going to have, Bogarts, Devers, Martinez, Story, you have Tristan Cassis up. He's one of their top hitting prospects. If not, I think he is their top hitting prospect. He's 2,500, first base eligible, just projects to be a very good hitter. And first base eligible on Boston is actually useful because they don't have another first baseman. So it's not like you have 2 first basemen now. So it just adds another good bat to that lineup. It adds another good value bat. Obviously, Pham and Verdugo at the top are fine as well. So I think that, basically Reese McGuire sucks. Kike Hernandez has been horrible this year. But at the very least, 1 through 7, if you do get Pham, Verdugo, Bogarts, Devers, Martinez, Story, and Cassis, it's a pretty solid lineup here.
It's another game that I'm just like oddly light on, although technically speaking over the field, it's patchy in this one. It's a weird game. I thought I would get more of the pitching. I'm not. I figured that I was just going to get the hitting. Then I'm not. It's almost like a cross-off game for me in a 5-game slate, and that makes me feel awful. That's a really, really tough like needle to thread or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I for sure like the Boston side.
I have more Boston than I do Tampa, and I would rather target Patino over Waka, but I don't even have much of the Red Sox either. Which
really limited sample in the majors for Patino this year, but since the start of last season, only a 13.9% strikeout percentage against lefties with a 178 expected ISO, 26.3% against righties with a 171 expected ISO. Just worth mentioning the lack of strikeouts against lefties when you have Verdugo, Devers, and Cassis in the lineup.
There's clearly no cash options anywhere here, right?
I don't think so.
It's not Waka, it's not Patino, it's certainly not any of the bat. Like this is just a cross-off game from a cash.
Yeah, there's nothing showing up in terms of cash for me.
Okay. We'll be talking about that in a second.
Interesting Cassis, but Rowdy Tellez is 4,200 in cores, so no.
Okay. Well, I got nothing else here. We moved through those first 3 games pretty damn quickly. So now we're going to talk a little bit about
quickly.
That's very true. Not smoothly at all, but we are through them. So we're going to talk a little bit about PrizePicks, presenting sponsor of this show. If you use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, that word's not gone yet, anybody. It's still here. You'll see Alex shortly. He'll be, I assume, on Sunday for NFL. If you use that promo code, you'll get up to $100 on your first deposit. So if you put in $50, they're only going to match with 50. But if you put in 100, they will match with 100. And you don't have to worry about sharks or optimizers or anything like that. You're making parlay cards based on player props. So you're taking over-unders. If you can get 5 of them right, you can add up to 5 times your entry fee. I'm going to hit Adam with a couple pitcher fantasy scores here. Not too many because there's not a lot for the early, but how do you feel about 37.5 for Kevin Gausman?
Under.
Yeah, I have it like pretty sizably under too.
Yeah, so do we.
I got him at 31.5.
Wait, we got a Michael Bauman update. He's in line with you now at like 10.5.
Okay, you're going to get him then.
Good to know. That'll be a great time.
Like it's not even just.
I'm going to regret sending that message.
Like it's not even just my sorting, just running my normal crunch with my randomness cooked. He's in 14% of lineups.
He projects at 2x now on a slate with shit pitching.
Yeah. So get ready, Michael Bauman season. All right, I gave you guys Kevin Gausman. Let's do Michael Wacha. 27.5. That's one I would walk away from. I got 26.5.
Yeah, we have 27.3.
Yeah. Now let's do one hitter. Hitting fantasy score. We'll go to the big man, Aaron Judge, 8.5.
Over?
Yeah, I got 9.5.
We have 10.
And I mean, if I'm going to be cheering for an over on a hitter score, Aaron Judge is probably the guy that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, just obviously insanely good.
We had some friends over yesterday. One a Yankees fan, and then my buddy that's just always here, also a Yankees fan. So we were just talking about how big of a year Judge was having, and then we got into the conversation of how like it just looks like a pedestrian Barry Bonds season.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy to look at that kind of stuff. Like Judge has a 400 on base percentage. And I was like, what do you guys think Bonds' was in like his heyday? You know, they all guessed incorrectly. I was like, 600.
That's just unbelievable.
50% higher. It's insane. All right. You ready for this one? This is going to take some time.
Sure.
Rockies and Brewers. 5.4 run implied total for the Rockies. 6 for the Brewers. This game is in course, just in case I didn't make that clear. And this is where the ownership is. 17% own Rockies, just crazy chalk, until you look at the Brewers and see that they're pulling in 33.5% ownership. Just for people to know, the aggregate ownership of just this game is 50%. 50% of the hitting ownership in the entire slate is between the Rockies and the Brewers. And it probably should be. What do you do with a Coors game on a 5-game slate? Start wherever. We're not talking about Feltner or Hauser. I am getting to these guys in small amounts. That's besides the point for right now. What do you do on a day where 50% of the ownership is going here?
I mean, the way the ownership looks right now, I think I end up getting to them because we just don't really have much of a difference. Like 33.5% ownership coming to Milwaukee, but we have them with nearly a 30% chance of being the top scoring stack, in addition to a 25% chance of being the top value stack. I think it's likely that I personally end up with a little bit lower top stack percentage, but the value is still going to drive them up to where, at the very least, I'm going to be using them to fill out lineups. And then, kind of the same thing with Colorado. They're not as cheap as Milwaukee is, but they're still in a decent spot here against the pitcher in Hauser that doesn't miss a lot of bats. They still have nearly a 5.5 implied run total. The only hitter in their lineup that's 5K is CJ Cron. Everybody else is less expensive. So they're pretty easy to get to as well. I think I probably just end up getting to both teams because when you look at when you look at the alternatives, at least right now, you have Toronto's ownership being pretty much where it should. You have the Cardinals being pretty much where it should. The Yankees getting a little bit more than they should. Like Boston, Minnesota, maybe Baltimore. Tampa's going a little underowned, but none of those teams are on the same level in terms of top stack percentages as either team in Coors. So unless ownership comes down elsewhere, I think it's likely that I end up just eating Coors and maybe mixing in some Michael Baumann or Orioles 3-mans or whatever.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm getting to basically the same as the field, somewhere in that 50-ish% range in the aggregate in this game. And I was like, I'm a little bit lighter. I'm lighter on the Brewers in my top stack metrics and top value metrics, but they're still ridiculous. 26% odds of being the top stack, 18% chance of being the top value. Like, they're free in Coors, and they're not even bad. It's like there should never be 5 hitters of the 18 available hitters that are under 3K.
Right.
Like, it's impossible to get away from something like that. I legitimately don't know. Like, I don't want to be playing these teams. It feels like the wrong thing to do just in my brain. But when I look at the prices, it's there's no other way to go about it.
The Coors pricing on these slates, it always really reiterates why I think it's so important, not just to look at raw ownership, but to have some way to gauge, and this is why we refer to the top stacks and top pitchers pool so much, some way to gauge how likely somebody is to succeed. Because I know like the thinking used to always just be like, oh, you just don't play popular players. You don't play the most popular players. And you still see it a lot of the times, like on Twitter, you'll get people like, oh, the 30% owned offense is doing well. But thinking through it from like a theoretical standpoint, you can see why it matters. Like if you tell me that the Brewers are 30% owned, but 100% to be the top scoring stack, you would play nothing but Brewers. You could tell me they're 60% owned and you would still play nothing but Brewers. So like there is some number on the scale where the raw ownership doesn't matter. You still should be playing more of the field. And obviously the kind of messy part is figuring that out and how you attack it. But I think it's just really important on slates like this to keep in mind that simply having a mindset of popular equals not a good tournament play is like a really, really bad way to play. You need to think in like more in-depth terms than that.
Right. Like, let's just say that it's 30 and 30. They're 30% owned and you think they are tops of the slate 30% of the time. That just becomes sort of like your lineup filler, and you're taking your stance elsewhere on someone that's lower owned. You're not getting away from that and still playing something else that's not as good. Like that's where you start to get yourself into trouble. You have to play some of these guys in some way, or your entire portfolio of what you're doing has to look a little bit different. You're taking the Sean approach where you are avoiding this, but that is your strategy every single day, and the entire plan around that supports what you're doing. It's not just scroll down in the list of teams and ownership, see the top one, and immediately just cross it off. That's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to give you less money.
Yeah, exactly. And like it sucks, like you said, it's not fun. I mean, it's kind of fun, like, because your lineup score a lot, but like,
yeah,
I would much rather it just be like, because people are going to play Milwaukee no matter what. You can make their salaries whatever you want, and people are going to find a way to play the Brewers in cores against Ryan Feltner. I think the slates are a lot more fun to go in and say, like, all right, cool. You guys can have Milwaukee. I'm going to get these 5 other teams that I like and are just not getting ownership. I think those slates are more fun as a player than being like, all right, well, ownership's coming into these other teams too. I'm going to just end up playing guys that are super popular and hoping that my super popular team does better than the other ones. Like, it's not fun, but you can't, you still have to take what the sites give you. And for example, to me, the biggest laughing point here is Ryan Feltner this year has allowed a 201 expected ISO, 200 actual ISO with an 18% strikeout percentage against left-handed hitters. Since the start of 2020, Rowdy Tellez has a 249 expected ISO and a 245 actual ISO against righties. And he is $4,200 facing Feltner in cores. Like, I understand ownership is really, really important, but like, you can't just blindly say, oh, Rowdy Tellez is getting, I don't have it in front of me, I'm going to guess something like 30% ownership.
38.
Yeah. And you can't just like simply say, oh, I'm not playing him. You're going to have a lot of lineups where you're better off saying, all right, well, I'm going to sacrifice XYZ other popular player and pair lower owned guys at those positions with Rowdy Tellez and still have a low enough owned lineup. I'm not saying that you want to just play chalk across the board, but you really, and slates like this reinforce that you can't just simply look at the highest owned players and be like, oh, they're bad, can't play it.
I'm excited to talk even more about this right now. It's just fun, honestly, to see this ridiculous nonsense. I buried, it wasn't even like a lead. Do you expect to get to either Feltner or Hauser? We have them at essentially no ownership. I have small amounts. I have 8% of both right now.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it. I think partly it's going to have to do with what happens with, I don't know if we've refreshed it, what happens with Mike Bauman's ownership. Like, if Mike Bauman's 1% and Adrian Hauser is 1%, I'm going to just play Mike Bauman first. But
we have Bauman,
so Bauman's up to 8%. Now it does become kind of interesting because you have Feltner and Hauser both at 1%. You have Sanchez at 5%. You have both Archer and Bauman at 8%. I think that Feltner and Hauser are clearly the lowest projected pitchers, but I don't think it's by a massive margin. So I could see, if you're playing 150 lineups, mixing them in a little bit. You said you had 8%. That seems fine. If I have 8%, I won't be upset. If I have 0, I won't be upset. If I have 25%, I will be upset. So it's certainly not going to be the huge stand that I'm taking, but wouldn't be surprised if I have more than 1%.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but it's just a function of the slate size. And we got to remember, like, obviously this is a great run environment. It's an 11.5 run total. Like, we shouldn't be getting to much Feltner or Hauser, but we got to remember that the ownership in this game is skewed because these prices are incorrect, not necessarily just like the raw talent. The Rockies are bad. Not that like I'm dying to get to Adrian Hauser, but when the teams are pulling all of the ownership because they're free, it's a little bit different than if all of these guys were still getting 30% ownership and these were 6K players. And yeah, I was going to hit on that too, but you already hit it in chat, so I'll let that continue in chat. From a cash perspective, it's probably all this game, although I am getting Newt Bar pretty regularly as a one-off with 7 other options from this game. It's Gossman, it's Flaherty. I don't really see much of a way around that, and you probably need 7 options from Rockies Brewers, if not 8.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, like the crunch that I did with the Stokastic projections was pretty much 5. It was 5 Brewers across the board.
Yeah.
Maybe some Rockies, but also getting like some Cardinals.
Yeah. I was getting
Some
Newt
Jose
Bar,
Trevino.
McMahon, Brendan Donovan, Brian Servin. Those are the only guys
we
that are
have
showing up
Diaz
more than
in,
20.
but he's in like 16%.
Okay. Wild game, man. And the worst part is, like, this game doesn't start for 4 hours.
The worst part is we're not even have the lineups.
Yeah. It is really going to be a mess.
It is also 97 degrees in Colorado, so keep that in mind.
Oh my God, this is going to be a launch pad.
Winds are blowing in, but not sure that matters too much.
Do we want to talk about how, like, in the grand scheme of things, the conversation points we have for large field stuff isn't different for single entry and 3 max?
Yeah, I mean,
we got time.
Yeah, it's not. It's just not. The only way that what Shane Hall is saying makes any sense is if you're talking about playing 1 to 2 lineups in like a 20,000 person top heavy tournament, then maybe you just go completely off the board, because like if you end up being at a disadvantage where you're like, let's say using Rowdy Tellez as the example, you play your 1 lineup in this 20,000 person tournament where everybody's 150 maxing, you get you're still competing with my best 35 Rowdy Tellez teams and McLovin's best 35 Rowdy Tellez teams and all of that. So that's where you could make some sort of a case for it. That's also why I think, unless your whole goal from DFS is just entertainment and hoping to get insanely lucky, you shouldn't be playing 1 to 2 entries in those contests.
Right.
But that's where it makes some sense. But if you're talking 3 max, single entry, whatever, it's still the same concept.
I'll probably have more Rowdy Tellez.
Well, so where Rowdy Tellez's ownership projection, like if you're talking single entry, Rowdy Tellez's ownership projection should be higher than it is in our ownership projections, because our ownership projections are for that large field tournament. So like Rowdy Tellez is going to be more popular in single entry, and so that could make him not as good a play. But it's the same formula, it's the same concept, it's the same way of building lineups. It's not saying, like, you still shouldn't be going in saying, oh well, I only am playing 1 lineup in the single entry, I'm only playing 3 and 3 max, so I can't play the chalk. It's the same concept. It's just a matter of evaluating your lineup by chances of success and ownership. It's outside of the example I gave at the beginning, where you are admittedly just making a bad contest selection decision in terms of profitability in exchange for just massive upside, which is fine if that's your goal. Outside of that type of strategy, it shouldn't be changing that much for single entry 3 max.
Yeah, we get those kind of questions a lot. Like, I know you guys are talking about 150 max. Like, what about for single entry 3 max? Small. It's really the field size that is dictating a lot of this, not the amount of lineups that you're allowed to put into it. 1,000 entry contest is different than a 30,000 entry contest, but it doesn't matter to me whether I enter 3 lineups or 150.
Right, and that's a good point.
My approach is the same there.
Right, and that's a good point too, where, I mentioned that in single entry, you're probably going to see the ownership on Tellez go up. But the thing you have to keep in mind too is, let's just, for sake of a round number, say you're playing a 100 single entry that has 100 entries. Even if you think Tellez is going to be 60% owned, that means you're competing with 60 Rowdy Tellez lineups. Like, who cares?
Yeah, it's not that important.
It's still not going to be that difficult.
It could be
to find a way to be different, like, because whereas in the massive tournament, let's say you have Rowdy Tellez and then you have a 5% owned, I don't know, Adley Rutschman. You're still, let's say Rutschman hits 2 home runs, you're still competing with like 1,000 lineups or whatever. In the single entry, let's say you have that Adley Rutschman and he's going to be like 3% owned because the ownership's going to come down a little bit since he's contrarian. You're competing with literally 3 lineups that have Adley Rutschman. So why wouldn't you want Rowdy Tellez?
Exactly. At that point in time, you want the chalk around what succeeded. And that's another, like, we can get into the next step of this for like late swap type decisions where you might even want to swap to Rowdy Tellez if that game happened afterwards and you hit that low owned, like, outlier performance. But that's
right.
Like,
yeah. Especially in smaller field, like in a large field, let's say, I mean, today's an example just with the game times. Let's say you have an Orioles stack and they're going off in large field and like you're looking and you're like, oh, well, I have this lineup. And then instead of Milwaukee coming up, I have
the Nats,
the Red Sox or something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Or the Nats. Like in large field, I'm still probably not going to be like optimizing because I know I'm still just going to be running into a bunch of like Milwaukee type stacks. But like if I'm playing single entry and I have a 3% owned Orioles stack just going nuts, and I know that there's like a total of 10 Orioles stacks or something, I'm going to just late swap to have the highest projected guys around it.
Yep. I think we had a nice little discussion there. I'm going to close it out with this. MLB Live is the promo code. MLBLIVE, one big word, all caps. 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus Platinum. I think this is the best time that you guys could possibly get in right now. Because if you sign up using that promo code today, you get it for a week. That's going to cover you for Thursday, Showdown, NFL, Sunday, main slate. We're back. I guess Monday, Showdown as well. Plus MLB. If there's any golf going on this weekend, we've got a monster UFC card this Saturday, soccer, racing. This is a fantastic week to check out what we've got behind the paywall. So use that promo code MLB Live, one big word, 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Closing it out, Cardinals and Nats, 5-run implied total.
By the way, we're not going to get my crunch done before the show because Kepler was scratched, so have to start over.
Fair enough. Cardinals and Nats, 5-run implied total for the Cards, 3.2 run implied total for the Nats. Jack Flaherty and Anibal Sanchez. Flaherty 50% owned at 7,200 here against the Nats. Anibal Sanchez 5% owned at 6,400. I don't know what to say for Flaherty other than the only thing that's really stopping Flaherty from being 100% owned today is the depth of this game for him. I don't necessarily think he's like live to be going 8-9 innings, but even in 5 innings at 7,200 against the Nats, he looks very clearly like the best or second best pitcher today relative to salary.
Yeah. Am I reading this correctly that he went 6 2/3 in his last rehab start?
If you are, that's going to change things for me. And I somehow missed that as well. He's been back, hasn't he?
Well, he came back and then he left again. He hasn't pitched in the majors since June.
6 2/3, 28 batters faced. Okay. So I want to look at it like this. Last in 76 1/3, he had 15 starts. That's a 5-inning average. In his heyday, 196 and 33. He can get up to 6. I'll probably give him an extra out now, which is going to let me get to a little bit more Flaherty. But no matter what you think here, this is an incredible spot for a talented pitcher and a price tag that is basically meaningless to you, even if you think he's good.
Yeah, sorry,
You're good, man.
I think we're a little low on our Flaherty projection too, probably.
What do we have, Matt?
12.6.
Yeah, I got 15 and change.
Yeah.
Or 16, rather.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good spot for him. It's a good price tag. I think the price is the really big thing for me because you're like, yeah, maybe they are going to have him on some sort of pitch count here. Like, he's not going to go through 105 pitches. Maybe he is. I don't know. But that really doesn't matter to me given the $7,200 price tag. If he was 9,300, then you're kind of running into the situation where it's like, all right, how high is his actual ceiling? Like, if he's pitching well, what will they let him do? Can he get me 30 points or am I hoping for 20? At 7,200, I don't care. Like, especially on this slate too, where there's just not good pitching. So I think Flaherty looks great. I think he's getting the most ownership. I think he should. Him and Gossman to me are just on a completely different level than every other pitcher.
Yeah, I completely. I mean, Flaherty's price just in general makes him awesome. He can be a much worse pitcher and still look good in this spot because the Nats are on the opposite side and they're 3.2 run implied total, lowest on the slate. The only other talking point we have here is, do you like Anibal Sanchez at all? Because I think he's actually the worst pitcher on the slate.
Worst in what?
I mean, maybe everything, but definitely from a DFS
I guess I can
perspective.
see it. Like, is Anibal Sanchez against the Cardinals really that much worse than or really that much better than Hauser or Feltner just because they're in course?
I have him way behind in projection.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a pretty horrible spot. He's given up a lot of power to righties this year too. 203 expected ISO, 15.7% strikeout percentage against righties, going up against a St. Louis team that you assume is going to have Goldschmidt, Arenado, O'Neill, maybe Pujols, who is the best hitter in baseball. It's a good spot for the Cardinals. It's a really bad spot for Sanchez. And then the fact that he is getting 5% ownership while, guys like Feltner and Hauser are getting 1. Again, not that I'm advocating for Feltner Hauser, but I don't really think there should be a gap there. Like, I think they should just all not be getting ownership.
Yeah, they're all shitty.
Right. I wouldn't be too surprised. So this is where it's really interesting to me, and I wish I was going to have the answer, but I'm not by the end of the show. It goes back to the ownership thing. I typically not going to be playing on a slate like this. I'm not going to be playing a lot of lineups that are like Gausman plus Flaherty plus Brewers all together. I could see this being a slate where I just jam Gausman, Flaherty, and then spread out bats, or I could see it being a slate where I jam the Brewers and spread out pitching. I don't really know which way it's going to end up going for me, but I think either way is reasonable.
Really excited to do lineup study tomorrow on the process where Adam has 30% Feltner, Hauser, Bauman, Sanchez combos. It's just like, oh, why did Ship My Money finish dead last with his 150 lineups and it's not a train? Let's talk Cardinals bats, 4th in top stack, 4th in ownership. That's about where I have them as well. Like, I think most of the hitting is in line with exactly where it should be.
Yeah,
just for the whole slate, I don't see anything wrong.
Trevor said, I guess Taillon gets a little better without Kepler. Yeah, you're up to 6 righties now in that Twins lineup. They replaced Kepler with Kyle Garlick, who's right-handed. So the lineup is, it's Taillon's still a mediocre pitcher, but and Kepler hasn't been good this year, so it's not like the biggest change in the world. But
it's probably a half fantasy point at best.
Well, I think it increases his ceiling too.
Okay.
Obviously, it doesn't increase his 100% outcome ceiling because that's just what it is. But I think it increases his chances of getting there just because you're getting one more right-handed bat.
Yeah,
he's already makes me the Minnesota stack a little bit less.
He's already 40% owned and one of the 3 top pitchers. So it's a marginal change for Taillon.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it does make it a little bit better. As far as the offenses here go, the ownership coming into St. Louis looks about where it should be. The biggest, I think, selling point on a team like St. Louis or Toronto, given their ownership right now, even though they're not projected to be under-owned, it is that, and this is where raw ownership does start to come into play. And it goes back to what I was just saying about, Gausman plus Flaherty plus Brewers. It's going to be easier for me to play a Gausman Flaherty lineup that has the Cardinals at 10%, 11% aggregate ownership than it is the Brewers at 30%.
Yes, it is. I mentioned it before. Nootbaar popping up a bunch for me in cash builds. He's one of the few non-Rocky Brewer types that was showing up. That's what's going to happen when you are a leadoff hitter that's 3,100 and you get to face Anibal Sanchez. Anything for the Nats bats, who are 2nd in top value today? Is this the place you go to save some loot?
No. The only thing that I would point to is that we really don't know what Jack Flaherty is right now. He's only made 3 major league starts this year. He was not very good overall. And then, like I said, he hasn't pitched in the majors since June 26th. It's likely that Jack Flaherty's still a good pitcher. He always has been. He probably still is. But there's, that non-zero chance that he just comes back and it's just this guy is not ready to be pitching in the major leagues right now. And the Nats, I think, even though they're not a good offense, they do have enough quality or average hitters where if Jack Flaherty is just pitching like a minor league pitcher, the Nats can do some damage. So that would be the argument for the Nats, is you just hope that you're getting really, really, really bad Jack Flaherty. But that's certainly not the most likely case, and it's not a team that I'm very excited to get to.
All righty. Well, I think we can sum it all up here. Favorite pitchers for today? Do you even have that answer?
Flaherty. I like Patino at less ownership. And I guess some $5,500 Ballman just because he's cheap.
Yeah, I don't want to say it that way, but it's going to be the case. Kevin Gausman and Jack Flaherty are the two best pitching options for today. The guy that I'm most likely to be over the field on in an aggressive manner, at least relative to the current ownership, is Mike Baumann. So cool. I mean, I had more Lyles before this, and he was also projected for like no ownership. So
he might outscore.
I hope not. not with the way that the Josh ownership column looks. All right, favorite stacks. This one is kind of cut and dry.
Milwaukee, St. Louis, Boston.
Not Colorado.
I mean, they're fine.
Okay. Brewers and Rockies are my top two. Yankees and Cardinals are the next two. Fading a Blue Jays team that I get every other day, which makes no sense to me, but here we are. All righty, folks. We got one in the books here. Remember, lock is in a little over a half hour. We lost the Mets game, but 5-gamer here. Adam, I guess we'll have some GPP videos coming out once the slate locks, and then we've got Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock later tonight. Anything else?
What's the line on if I get my lineups in?
Well, define get them in? You mean like correctly?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say like, oh, you'll clearly have 4 different dudes locked for the 1 o'clock games.
Right.
But
I mean, that's the only way to win.
I mean, if you can't right now in the next 30 minutes, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, and we did actually just get the Jack Flaherty update too. So I don't have to wait on that. So I think we'll be good.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for being here. Hit that like button on your way out the door. All 500 plus of you. Got to 135 likes. Shout out to George with that.
136. I forgot mine.
I didn't even know you ever did it. So thank you for that.
It's
Sign up using the promo code MLB Live, not any other promo code that has Adam's name in it. We will talk to you again later. Peace.